Hey everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and Apple today released the macOS Sonoma 14.3 update. We are now halfway through the Sonoma life cycle, and we've got a lot of things to cover for the 14.3 update. We also have a live demo of installing the update on our demonstration Mac, along with talking about OpenCore Legacy Patcher on 6 different hardware devices. We got lots to cover. Let's jump in and get started. Alongside the Sonoma 14.3 update, Apple updated the entire fleet of operating systems today. On the macOS side, we got security updates for macOS Ventura at 13.6.4 and macOS Monterey at 12.7.3. Safari was also updated to 17.3, and that is included in the Sonoma 14.3 update and was released as a standalone update for both macOS Monterey and macOS Ventura. On the iOS side, we got 17.3, 16.7.5, and all the way back to 15.8.1, and that's the same for iPadOS. For AudioOS for HomePod, we got 17.3, tvOS 17.3, and watchOS 10.3. Our demonstration Mac here today is a MacBook Pro 13-inch M1 2020. To be able to get to the software update, all you need to do is go into System Settings and then click on Software Update Available. I'm logged in as my test Apple ID, and this Mac is also file vaulted to create as close as for your own Mac when performing updates. Now you should see the Sonoma 14.3 update in here. If you don't, you can hit Command R to get it to refresh or close open System Settings. Now to get more information about it, you can click on the More Info button to see all the changes in here, and you can also see the size. Now remember, the size is exactly what your Mac needs. If it's on an older update like 14.1, it's going to be larger. 1.83 gigabytes is going to be the smallest size because I do all the updates from the last OS update. For this Mac, it was 14.2.1, so it's going to be the smallest possible update. Now, if you're on OpenCore Legacy Patcher on an unsupported Mac, you're going to have a 13.37 gigabyte update, and that is totally normal. That's what we need to do for our unsupported Macs with OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So to get the update started, all you need to do is click on Update Now and agree. And our password. And it's immediately going to start to download the 14.3 update. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to keep track of the system macOS to see how much space that took up, and we're also going to track how long it took to prepare and install this update. And there we go, it's downloading the update. I switched up my setup here at home because I'm downloading so many updates. I'm actually, every update now with the 7 demo devices, I'm downloading up to almost 80 gigabytes worth of updates for all the systems together. So what I've done is I've activated a caching server on my Mac Pro, and I'll show you that a little bit later. It really helps speed up the update transfer, and I only need to download it one time, and then I can transfer that update to all my systems. So it's a really nice thing here. So we're going to keep track of this, and we'll be back right after the update finishes. Okay, we are back up after installing the 14.3 update, and I wanted to talk about a couple setup assistant screens that came up after the update. The sign in with your Apple ID came up to re-sign back in. Sometimes that happens after a macOS update. That's okay. Just enter your password in and it'll finish signing in. Also, if you didn't set up Apple Pay before, you will get a prompt to continue to sign in Apple Pay. You can just click down here to say set up later, so you don't have to do that. And there was also a prompt for File Vault if you haven't already set it up. After the 14.3 update, let's check to see what the build version number is, and it is 23D56. And we always check on this just in case you were on a previous beta release and you wanted to make sure which version is which, so everything's good to go on that. Now, I used to keep track of the system data and the macOS size after each update, so we're going to try to keep doing that again. And on the 14.2.1 update, we kept track here, and we had macOS at 20.2 gigabytes. We got 20.25, so just a little bit of an increase. And on the system data, we went from 5.47 to 6.25. So how long did it take to install the 14.3 update? And you can see here that I keep track of every single update to follow the installation time and size of the update. For 14.3, it was 1.83 gigs. The preparing time took 6 minutes, and the actual install time once we rebooted took 5 minutes for a total of 11 minutes. And that keeps in line with feature release updates with actual OS changes and new features. For example, 14.2 was 12 minutes, but longer than, for example, a smaller security update 14.2.1 at 6 minutes. Now let's talk about the firmware updates. For Apple Silicon M1 and M3, firmware got updated to 10.151.81.1, and for Bridge OS on Intel Macs, it got updated to 21.16.3.0.4.9. Previous updates, like for example security updates, sometimes don't update the firmware of the Bridge OS, so that's why I keep track of that, and you know if there's a change being made. Apple also released a full install assistant.pkg if you want to be able to create a USB installer, and if you have an Apple Silicon Mac, a full IPSW Restore file was released to be able to restore your Mac with Apple Configurator 2. The standalone updates were released for Safari for macOS Ventura and macOS Monterey. I keep a database just like I do with the full installer and the IPSW of all of the individual downloads, just in case you need to reinstall Safari for Ventura or macOS Monterey. You can just download this package right from my website, and that can fix different Safari issues. Now that we got some of those details out of the way, let's look at the enhancements and features of the 14.3 update. First of all, there's a big change to Apple Music. You can now collaborate on playlists in Apple Music, and it allows you to invite friends to join your playlist, and everyone can add, reorder, and remove songs. So let's take a closer look at that. To be able to use collaborate on playlists in Apple Music, you need to be an Apple Music subscriber. So basically, collaborative playlists are available on macOS Sonoma 14.3, iOS 17.3, and iPadOS 17.3 later. Now you can invite the people to your collaborative playlist, and you can get these full instructions by looking at the new help feature that talks about all these changes. There's a new manage shared settings for the list, so you can put all the people into the collaboration just by sending an invite link right here, and then you can approve or deny, and then once in, you can work together on that playlist to be able to change different settings. For example, you can reorder, you can add songs, you can remove songs. So it's a really cool feature if you are an Apple Music subscriber and you have other friends or family that also use Apple Music. Now another feature with the collaborative playlist, once you have the playlist set up, you will be able to add reactions next to a song. So for example, if you like the song, you can choose a reaction, for example, a thumbs up, click on the plus button to find the specific emoji. You can see the different reactions here that you can give it. You can click the reaction button in the playback controls at the top of the music button to quickly choose a reaction, or the plus button to get the full list of emoji reactions. We also got a new general item in the system settings, Apple Care and Warranty, which is a really nice place to be able to keep track of all of your Apple items and select Bluetooth items. So all you need to do is click on this and it can show you a list that is all connected to your Apple ID. Now to my test account here, I have this 13-inch MacBook Pro like we talked about with the file vault encryption and iCloud activation lock. And we've got our Mac Pro late 2013, and unfortunately after 10 years the coverage has expired, obviously, and you can see that the coverage shown on these devices are connected to your Apple ID and select Bluetooth paired devices. So this is a really nice feature to keep track of all of your Apple Care warranty and information. Now let's talk about some of the security fixes in the Sonoma 14.3 update. You can see the full set of security releases for iOS and iPadOS, and especially the new feature for stolen device protection for iOS. Now for Sonoma, we've got 12 different security fixes and 4 different WebKit and Safari fixes. When we look at these, we're also looking for any of them that Apple tells us that have been actively exploited in the wild. And one of those right here is for WebKit. Processing a maliciously crafted web content may lead to arbitrary code execution. Apple's aware of the report that this issue may have been exploited. That's definitely something that you want to keep an eye out for when we're looking at how serious these issues are. Now, when we scroll up here, we have another one that I wanted to point out, and this is for anything 2016 or newer that has a Touch ID sensor. A maliciously crafted web page may be able to fingerprint the user. An access issue was addressed with improved access restrictions. So these some of these are really important security fixes that we want to be able to keep an eye on. And even this one's an interesting one too. An app may be able to view a user's phone number in the system logs. All that stuff like your phone number is protected information inside your account and should never be accessed. And this issue was addressed with improved redaction of sensitive information. We've definitely got some really important fixes in the security section for 14.3. Now, if you support Macs in enterprise, schools, or higher education or government, there's some enterprise fixes for 14.3. First of all, XAN is still around, and there was a fix for if the volumes no longer fail to mount automatically. Passwords can be changed successfully, not the login window, and that was a big issue that some Mac admins were having problems with that we're really hoping for a fix. Improves reliability when authenticating to an SMB print server, and improves reliability using single sign-on when using a proxy for associated domain traffic. Now let's take a look at some of the Geekbench 6 benchmark scores. On 14.2.1 we had a single core of 2401 and a multi of 8764, and on 14.3 we had a 2392 and an 8755 right on target. Now let's talk about OpenCore Legacy Patcher for unsupported Macs. As of January 23rd, the latest version is 1.3.0. I can tell you 1.4.0 is in the work with no release date so far, and you can guarantee that I will cover that as soon as it's released. But for now, 1.3.0 is looking good for 14.3. So let's take a closer look at some of our demo devices. Our first demonstration Mac that we wanted to cover for OpenCore Legacy Patcher is our mid-2017 15-inch MacBook Pro. Now this is important because this is one of the newest Macs that is unable to install Sonoma and has the Touch Bar and Touch ID that we have to worry about, and the T1 security chip. With 1.3.0 you can see all of the patches that need to be applied, plus we need the kernel debug kit, which was updated for 14.3 with the build 23D56. Now to test the Touch Bar, we can go into accessibility and we can go into switch control, turn on the switch control right here with this radio. So you can click on system, and then you can click on toggle touch bar, and we can see our touch bar controls and actually work with them right on the screen. So we're good on our touch bar. The next thing we wanted to test Touch ID. So you can click on the power button or the Touch ID button to lock the screen, and then you can just use your fingerprint to be able to unlock it, and there it goes. So everything is working on this 2017-inch MacBook Pro. We've got our Bluetooth, we got our Wi-Fi, good to go. The next demonstration Mac that we want to go over is our mid-2014 15-inch MacBook Pro. And this is important because this has got a NVIDIA Kepler-based GPU in it and does not need the kernel debug kit. We are on 14.3. We've got 1.3.0 and everything's running A-OK on this system. No issues whatsoever. We got our Bluetooth, we've got our Wi-Fi, and we're good to go. Now before we get into our next demonstration Mac, I wanted to talk about something that happens after you install the macOS update. The Mac will reboot, install 14.3, and then seal the snapshot, and then it does not have the host install root patches in there to be able to run the system and the graphics acceleration. So it comes back up, it gets to the login window, and you won't be able to see the Sonoma background. It'll look black, and it'll be really sluggish. And if that happens, give it some time, maybe a minute or two, to see if you can get the password screen, and then try to type in the password. It'll be really slow. Once you get in though, you should see the pop-up message saying that you need to be able to install the root patches. If that doesn't happen, it still gets stuck on that black screen. It's okay to power it down and then power it back up, and then it should be a lot more responsive that second time. Log in, and then you should see the box, and you can install the root patches, and then you can reboot, and everything will be a-okay. If you don't get that pop-up detecting OpenCore Legacy Patchers detecting that you're not running with the root patches, you can go into the app and manually do that, and then restart, and then you'll be okay. So I just wanted to cover those two items really quickly because I've seen a couple questions in the comments about when that's happening to different users. With this Mac Pro 2013 is our next demonstration unit, and we had some problems last time with the kernel debug kit downloading a beta version of the kernel debug kit. Now I was lucky enough to be able to talk to Makola about this today, and we talked about this particular issue, and he mentioned that Dina K was working on the issue and solved this for 1.4.0 OpenCore Legacy Patcher, so we should not see that issue come up again, and that's really great to here. Again, no release time on that so far, in 1.3.0 is working good across the entire fleet. With that problem last time, we still were A-OK on the previous version of the kernel debug kit, 14.2 for 14.2.1, because there was no kernel debug kit for 14.2.1, so that's fine. But we do have a new kernel debug kit for 14.3. The launch daemon did not kick off properly. Normally when you click install macOS update, you'll see the pop-up saying we need to download the kernel debug kit. That didn't happen. The system restarted, came back up, and had to revert back, install the 14.2 kernel debug kit, because that's all I had, because it had no Wi-Fi. In this case, I let it do that. I wanted to see what happened if it failed, and it did okay. The 14.2 kernel debug kit was okay for this Mac Pro, but in the past, we know that some Macs don't react the same way. What I did then is once I had Wi-Fi after we came back up, I clicked on post install root patch, and then we had Wi-Fi, detected that we needed to be able to download the KDK again. And remember that OpenCore Legacy Patcher log is in users, shared, and you can see all these logs. All these logs in here will tell you what's happening during the patch process. Most likely this is not going to happen to you, but that's why I wanted to highlight it is possible for this to happen. If you know your Mac's going to get a kernel debug kit download, and you don't see that pop up, I would pause and not let that update continue. And you can go into the library developer KDKs folder. And if you don't see the KDK for your Mac, you don't really want that system to restart. And then you can go to the GitHub site and make sure that there's a kernel debug kit available for your Mac. And that's how you can verify that. So I just wanted to go over that to show you that if you ever get in that situation, that's where you could be. Now, if you have any questions on this, let me know in the comments, because I know this part can be a little bit confusing. And keep in mind, most installations are going to go just fine, like all my other ones did. But if something goes wrong, or you see an issue and you don't see something that's acting normal, that's when to keep a little bit of attention. It's like, hey, something's not working right here. Let's take a closer look. That's our 2013 Mac Pro installation. Now, I talked on Twitter about content caching. What's interesting is I mentioned last update that I was downloading so much over the internet that my internet service provider sent me a warning that I'm getting close to my cap. And having a cap on an internet service provider for residential is insane enough. But Dina Kay, the co-developer of OpenCore Legacy Patcher, said, hey, yeah, content caching would work good for you. In system settings, if you go into general and then you go into sharing, you can see content caching right here. And if you click on the information button, you can see those settings. And I turned on content caching for the 14.3 update because I wanted all these test Macs to pull from this box. And that's exactly what happened. And the setup was super simple. And you can monitor that in Activity Monitor. And then you get this cache tab. You can click on that and you can see all the data of what happened. So here's how this works. The way that this is set up is that if you get an update on this system, then it's able to be served to other systems. But if you don't have that, if this system doesn't have that update, that's okay anyway, because it can still request that update and then cache it to the server. So you can see the stats here. Total data served, 68 gigabytes worth of data. But 53 of those gigabytes were served from cache, and that shows that it did get one full download onto the system for that first system that requested it, and then every system after was served directly from this Mac Pro. You can see the data here. You can see that one little blue bar saying it had to download it first, and then every other green bar is when it was serving it to other Macs on my network. For example, all 7 Macs were pulling from this content cache server except for the M1. Now that's going to help a lot if you have a bunch of Macs at your house and you could utilize caching server. This is a wonderful option. And I might go into this more in another video. Let me know if you're interested in talking more about content caching below in the comments. The next demonstration Mac that we want to go over is our 2012 Mac Mini. I picked these demonstration Macs for a certain reason. This one I picked because it has an Intel only based GPU. Like the Kepler Mac, does not require the kernel debug kit, but it does a couple other different things. For example, you'll see this pop up when you're installing the root patch about the system extension updated for the Intel HD 4000 graphics. And these are the little differences that I wanted to be able to cover when we're talking about these different hardware devices. It also shows how complicated this can be when the OpenCore Legacy Patcher developers have to support 73 different Mac models. For this Mac Mini, everything went very well. 14.3 and 1.3.0 were perfect in the installation, no issues whatsoever. Next up is our 17-inch late 2011 MacBook Pro. 14.3 and OpenCore Legacy Patcher 1.3.0. No issues whatsoever on this Mac. I picked this Mac for our demonstration list because it does not include a metal compatible GPU. So different things are needed to be able to make this work, and certain things like maps and different apps that are really heavy on metal compatibility sometimes don't work properly. Other than that though, all of the installation worked, the kernel debug kit downloaded, and we are looking good to go on this 2011 MacBook Pro. Now last but not least in our fleet is our mid-2010 13-inch polycarbonate MacBook. And I added this one to the fleet because it is definitely the oldest. It is now almost 14 years old and can still run OpenCore Legacy Patcher and macOS Sonoma. And this one's particular because it does require the kernel debug kit. And you can see in our library developer folder, we've got our latest kernel debug kit and the list of patches needed for the NVIDIA Tesla, modern wireless for Wi-Fi, and legacy USB 1.1. Now remember, with 2010 and below, you need that USB 2.0 or lower keyboard and mouse to be able to operate the system when it does not have the legacy patches installed to be able to make the keyboard and the trackpad work. So when it comes back up and you can't log in or the keyboard's not working, that's where you got to plug that in, get these patches rolling, then reboot. Once it comes back up, it'll work. So I use a 2008 Apple keyboard and it works perfectly because it is USB 2.0 and I don't even need to use the dongle. And the mouse connected to that is a USB hub inside that keyboard and everything works out. The other issue with this particular Mac was the Bluetooth was not working. I had this same issue on the 2011 17-inch MacBook Pro where the Bluetooth, you would click it, it would show with a strike out and it was grayed out, and you could click it and it wouldn't turn on. If that happens to you, a quick fix for that is just to reboot and reset the PRAM. Hold down Option, Command R until you hear 2 chimes, let it boot back up, and usually that's enough to fix the Bluetooth. And now that fixed it for this. When I booted this up today, I didn't even check it before, but the Bluetooth was not working. After a PRAM reset, everything was okay. So other than that, the installation went really well for this 13-inch mid-2010 polycarbonate MacBook. Now comes the recommendation. Do I recommend installing the 14.3 update? This update for security and features and enterprise fixes, there's enough going on here that I do recommend installing the 14.3, especially for those security updates that we went over. There's some pretty serious ones that really were interesting and also kind of eye-opening at the same time. So I'm going to be installing this and I do recommend you doing that too. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. And we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.